In the first part in this series, we took a look at how the Ditty box was an intimate part of the shipboard life of an American sailor or Marine for well over a century. In this part, we'll take an in-depth look into the life of the owner of my Ditty box, George Joseph Rodemick. Judging from the brass plaque he had made for the top of his Ditty box, I would have thought that he only spent a couple years in the Navy, but it turns out he had a long and fascinating career. Although I don't have any photographs of him, I do have photographs of many of the places where he served and some of the things he did while he was in the Navy. And at the end of this part, there will even be some pretty close personal connections with the man. George Joseph Rodimick was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on August 15, 1890. At the age of 15, on June 1st, 1906, 6 weeks before his 16th birthday, Rodemick enlisted in the Navy at the Navy Recruiting Office in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He started his Navy career, as did everybody at that time, as an apprentice seaman. The day of his enlistment, Rodemick was transferred to USS Constellation, the 1854 sloop of war that was the last all-sail ship built for the U.S. Navy. At the time, Constellation served as a training ship, sort of the forerunner of today's recruit training or boot camp. For the next 7 weeks, Rodemick learned the skills necessary to go from the life of a civilian to that of a sailor. And at the end of this period, on August 21st, 1906, Rodemick was advanced from apprentice seaman to ordinary seaman. And, by the way, USS Constellation is still afloat in Baltimore Harbor, where you can visit the ship today. This is the second USS Constellation, not the 1797 frigate, but the 1854 sloop of war. On August 22, 1906, Rodemick reported aboard the armored cruiser USS Maryland. Once aboard, he was assigned a hammock, he was assigned a ditty box, and he was assigned to work among the gunner's mates. Within this rating, Rodemick would learn the skills necessary to operate the variety of different guns within the ship's battery. These would include the biggest, the 8-inch guns within large swiveling turrets, to the secondary and tertiary batteries of 6-inch and 3-inch guns, all the way down to 3-pounder deck guns, and even machine guns and small arms. During his 4 years aboard USS Maryland, Rodemick learned the fundamentals of how to load, fire, clean, and maintain these weapon systems. 3 years into his tour, Rodemick was recognized for his service and his knowledge and his skills by his advancement to seaman on October 1st, 1909. With this advancement, he went from receiving $19 a month to $24 a month. The 4 years listed on the brass plaque of Rodemick's Ditty box represent the longest tour of duty of his entire career. For the rest of his career, Rodemick would see duty aboard a number of different ships, every one of them battleships. On May 6, 1910, Rodemick was transferred to the battleship USS Kansas. He remained here for a short 3 months until August, when he was transferred to the U.S. Naval Torpedo Station in Newport, Rhode Island. Rodemick would spend the next 8 months in Newport learning the fundamentals of operation and deployment of torpedoes, at the end of which he was acknowledged with his advancement to Gunner's Mate 3rd Class on April 28, 1911. The next day, on April 29, 1911, Rodemick was transferred to the battleship USS Nebraska. This assignment was Rodemick's second longest tour of duty, 3.5 years. And here he obviously demonstrated professional and leadership skills, because on January 1st, 1913, he was advanced to Gunner's Mate 2nd Class, and just over a year later, on January 17th, 1914, he was advanced to gunner's mate first class. In November of 1914, Rodemick was transferred to the battleship USS Ohio, where he stayed till the following March. Afterward, he had two short assignments aboard the battleship USS Alabama for a month and a couple of weeks aboard USS Illinois, another battleship. He then reported aboard the battleship USS Connecticut from June to December of 1915. On New Year's Eve 1915, Rodemick was transferred to the battleship USS Wisconsin, where he stayed until May of 1916. In May 1916, Rodemick was sent to the Navy recruiting station in Buffalo, New York, where he stayed until the end of March 1917. For the next year, from the end of March 1917 until the end of March 1918, Rodemick served aboard the receiving ship, remember, like a boot camp, in his hometown of Philadelphia. Rodemick became a chief petty officer at this time, with his advancement to chief gunner's mate on October 1st, 1917. Rodemick was assigned to the receiving ship in New York City for 2 weeks, and then returned to the receiving ship in Philadelphia, where he served from April of 1918 to June of 1919. In June 1919, Chief Rodemick returned to recruiting duty, this time here in Philadelphia, where he served from June of 1919 until late September 1921. On September 22, 1921, Chief Rodemick reported to the U.S. Navy Gunnery School in Washington, D.C. He would serve there for nearly a year. On August 7, 1922, Chief Rodemick, having completed 16 years of service, was transferred to the Fleet Naval Reserve. Transfer to the Fleet Reserve is kind of like retirement, but you're in a position where they can still call you back if they need you. This practice is still in use today when a sailor leaves active duty after 20 years, although at that time you could do it in as little as 16 years. For the next 14 years, Rodemick received a stipend or retainer pay until 1936, when he was transferred to the retired list after a total of 30 years service. On December 8, 1941, the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Rodemick was recalled to active duty, as were most of the other people on the retired list. Rodemick served as a chief gunner's mate at the receiving station in Philadelphia from December 1941 until November 1943. During this time, on the 1st of October 1943, he was advanced to chief warrant officer. Warrant officers form a bridge between the enlisted and officer communities. Warrant officers are selected from among senior enlisted personnel who have long service and experience in their professional fields. At the time, there were only two grades of warrant officer and chief warrant officer. So while Rodemick had been enlisted, his rating was gunner's mate. As a warrant officer, a basic warrant officer would be a gunner, and a chief warrant officer would be a chief gunner, which is what he became. Chief Gunner Rodemick served at the Naval Training Station in Newport, Rhode Island from November 1943 until February 1944, when he went to the Naval Training Station Norfolk, Virginia from February 1944 until July of 1944. From there, he went to the Naval Ammunition Depot in Earle, New Jersey from July 1944 until August 1945. For a month, from August 1945 till September 1945, Rodemick was admitted to the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia. After his release from the hospital, Rodemick went to the nearby Naval Air Materiel Center in Philadelphia. He would serve here from September 1945 until July 1946. On July 2, 1946, he was again admitted to the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia, this time for 4 months. Finally, on November 2, 1946, at the age of 56, Rodemick was permanently returned to the Navy retired list. During his years in the service, George Rodemick earned several medals, including the Navy Good Conduct Medal, several awards, the Mexican Service Medal, the 1915 Haitian Campaign Medal, the World War I Victory Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal. In May 1965, Rodemick was once again admitted to the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia. He had suffered a heart attack, and on May 21st, at the age of 74, George Rodemick died. A monument to the personnel who had served in the Army, Navy, and Marines from Abington, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, was erected after the war. George Rodemick's name was included on the bronze tablet. Recently, this World War I memorial was moved to a new park in Abington that honored local citizens who had served in other wars. After discovering all this information about the life and career of this Pennsylvania man, all originating from a simple ditty box, it felt appropriate to pay tribute and to visit this memorial. And going even further, it felt like the right thing to do to visit the man himself at Arlington Cemetery in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania. Thanks for your service, shipmate.